Hi everyone, welcome. And my name is Chavi Bhandari. I'm part of the Community Engagement and Involvement team at the NIHR Global Health Research Center for Non-Communicable Diseases and Environment Change. And it is a pleasure to welcome all of you to the third session of Voices of Practice. Voices of Practice is a series that is co-created with our Public Advisory Board to reflect, learn, explore what meaningful community engagement looks like in practice. And today's session, as you can see, is titled When Pictures Speak. Well, you can't see it on the screen, but yes, yeah, now you can. Is titled When Pictures Speak, and we are delighted to be joined by our Public Advisory Board member, Ms. Neeru Khera. She's an award-winning filmmaker and writer whose work uses visual storytelling to strengthen community engagement, trust building, and ethical communication in public health and social research. In today's session, Neeru will share how photography and film can be used to build trust in communities, ensure safeguarding and responsible storytelling, highlighting the creative and joyful side of visual engagement, which I know she very much enjoys, and inspiring ways to enrich our CEI activities in whatever form and shape that we do them as part of our roles. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Neeru Khera. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Chavi, for this introduction, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. And being a filmmaker, speaking is not my forte. I'm usually behind the camera and writing, not in front of it. So, but since I'm so passionate about this subject, when uh, I didn't start with this kind of filmmaking. I was a filmmaker who was doing different things like uh, you know did a lot of firsts, but when I got into this kind of filmmaking with NIHR, and I started working with the communities, to make films, then I realized how much is needed and in community engagement, and how filmmaking and all kinds of digital skills are which are of very common now. We have a cell phone in our hand all the time, and I realized that digital storytelling is so important to get the story across. So let me share my experiences and what I have gathered, and I hope it is useful to you all. So thank you all for being here today. And to start, I want to say something very clearly, that this session is not about filmmaking, it's not about photography skills, and it's not about adding extra work to already full research roles. I'm saying this at the start because at the moment, when the people hear the word film, visuals, or storytelling, everybody starts imagining equipment, editing, cameras, permissions, timelines, and most important, pressure. They imagine something technical, heavy, and outside their existing work, something which they need to learn. But that is not what I'm here to talk about. This session is about how we connect with people in community engagement and what changes when we use visuals thoughtfully, ethically, and with care. When I say when pictures speak, I'm not suggesting that images replace research, data, or evidence. I'm not suggesting that visuals are more important than rigorous methods. I'm talking about how photographs, short videos, and simple visual records can do three very specific things in community engagement. They can build trust, they can amplify community voices, and they can help research travel beyond reports, presentations, and closed rooms. At its heart, today is about digital storytelling as a CI practice. Not a product, not a campaign, not a polished film output. It's a practice. One that is ethical, practical, and possible with the tools most of us already have with us. Now, setting the context why visual matters in community health. In community engagement, especially in health related research, we often invest a great deal of effort in asking the right question. Before I talk about why visuals matter, I want you to think about the last research presentation you attended. Think how much you remember from it. Now think about the last image you saw that stayed with you. chances are the image is easier to recall than the data. It's not because data is unimportant. It's because humans understand the world through seeing, feeling, and recognizing before we analyze. In community health work, this matters deeply because the issues we work with, illness, behavior, environment, care, they're all lived long before they're measured. Visuals help us to meet people where their lives are actually unfolding. They do not replace research. This is very important. They help us to pay attention. And attention is often the first step towards trust. We design tools carefully, we refine language, we pilot questionnaires and discussion guides, we train teams to ask sensitively and responsibly. All of this matters deeply, but trust does not always come from questions. Very often, trust comes from recognition, from people feeling rather than being assessed. Most of you, or many of you, work in community health, non communicable diseases, nutrition, environmental change, and related areas. In these contexts, people are often asked to explain themselves repeatedly. They're asked to explain their illness, their behavior, their lifestyle choices, their environment, their beliefs about health, care, and healing. Even when this is done respectfully, it can become exhausting over time. Not because people don't want to participate, but because they're constantly being asked to translate their lives into research language. Visuals help shift that burden slightly. A photograph allows someone to say, "This is my reality," without having to justify it. A short video can show care, uncertainty, fear, or resilience without demanding a perfect explanation. In community health work, this is especially important. Health is not experienced only as symptoms or outcomes. It is experienced in homes, in schools, in places of work, in environments affected by pollution, climate, poverty, and access. Visuals allow these contexts to be seen, not summarized. This is why visual storytelling works so well in community engagement. It crosses language barriers, it supports participation where literacy levels vary, it reduces stigma by showing everyday life rather than exceptional moments, and it opens conversations gently without putting people on the spot. Images do not simplify reality, they hold complexity without forcing explanation. And when communities feel recognized rather than analyzed, trust begins in form more naturally. This approach also aligns closely with established guidelines on community engagement. Global frameworks such as UNICEF's minimum standards for community engagement emphasize participation, inclusion, shared ownership, and two-way communication. Visual and audio methods naturally support these principles. They create space for people to participate in ways that feel accessible and meaningful rather than extractive. In that sense, visual storytelling is not separate from good community engagement practice. That trust changes the quality of engagement itself. Another thing which is very important is what changes when visuals enter the room. Here, I want to slow down and talk about what actually changes when visuals enter a community engagement space. Before visuals are introduced, many engagement settings follow a familiar pattern. Researchers speak, questions are asked, some people respond quickly, others remain silent. Often, the same voices dominate. Silence is sometimes interpreted as lack of interest, lack of understanding, or lack of confidence. But silence can mean many things. It can mean uncertainty, it can mean fear of being judged, it can mean not knowing how to put lived experience into words. When visuals are introduced carefully, the atmosphere shifts. People do not have to perform answers immediately. They can point, they can show, they can pause. A photograph gives permission to slow down. A short clip allows people to respond emotionally rather than analytically. Body language changes. People lean forward. They take time. They notice details. Silence becomes productive rather than awkward. And in community health engagement, this matters very deeply because participation is not only about who speaks, It's about who feels able to be present. Visuals create entry points that words alone sometimes cannot. They invite people in without demanding immediate articulation. This is a very different form of engagement, and it often leads to deeper, more honest conversations later. According to UNICEF, this approach is also supported in global CEI guidance. Visuals often strengthen participation and two-way communication in ways written forms can't. I think, Maruf, we'll just wait for this video to play. Let me talk a little more about this and then we will show that video. Now, a new phrase which is very popular these days, it's digital storytelling. Now, let me tell you what digital storytelling really means. This is where anxiety often appears when we talk about films and we talk about, recording something. So it doesn't mean polished films, it doesn't mean professional crews, and it doesn't mean public-facing campaigns. It means small, intentional visual acts. It might be one photograph someone agrees to share, a 10 or 15-second clip capturing a moment, an audio reflection recorded with care. That is all. And digital storytelling can take many simple forms. In community engagement, stories do not always arrive as complete narratives. They often arrive as fragments, a single photograph, a short moment, or a voice. A one story image might be a photograph of space, a gesture, or interaction that matters. It does not explain everything, but it invites empathy. A short moment clip, 10 or 15 seconds, can show everyday life as it is. No narration, no performance, just a moment that allows others to feel what is happening. Audio recordings are often especially powerful in sensitive context. A voice without a camera can feel safer. It allows people to share emotions without exposure. These forms work because they help people feel rather than analyzed. When communities sense that their realities are being held with care, empathy grows. People begin to share more openly because they feel their stories will reach where it matters. They feel their experience will not be lost, simplified, or buried inside academic papers. Digital storytelling, used this way, becomes a bridge between lived experience and research, between communities and decision making spaces. It's also important to say this very clearly that all this can be done very simply. You do not need special equipment, you do not need technical skills. In most cases, a mobile phone is enough. Phones are familiar objects in communities these days. People already understand them as tools for communication, not surveillance. So, this familiarity matters. It lowers fear. It makes the act of recording feel ordinary rather than intrusive. You also don't need a film to complete a story, a complete story, a film in form of a film. Digital storytelling in community engagement is rarely about capturing everything in one go. This is very important. Small snapshots are enough, short clips are enough. These moments can be looked at later, reflected on, and carefully selected or edited if needed. This approach keeps the focus on engagement in the moment, not on producing content. The work remains relational. The technology stays in the background and trust stays at the center. Now, a digital storytelling in community engagement is not about, again, collecting stories as material. It's about creating the right conditions for stories to emerge safely. Let me describe what this actually looks like on the ground. You arrive in a community on a routine visit, nothing special is planned. You're there to listen, observe, engage. At some point, you notice something meaningful. When you're connecting with the community, when your trust is being built up and people are opening up with you, some things suddenly just come up. It might be a moment of care, a space where some health decision is made, or an interaction with any person which says something about important about everyday life, about their everyday life. So before recording, you ask, not formally, not dramatically, just clearly, would it be okay to take a photo of this? We don't have to, and it's completely your choice. Sometimes the answer is no, and so you stop. Sometimes the answer is yes. When it is yes, you record a moment. You do not keep filming, you do not chase the story, you do not push for more, you stop. That moment becomes part of your engagement record. This approach shifts the dynamic in very real ways.
जैसे काले कपड़े में सीखे काले डोरे के साथ अपने गले में डाल लेना इंशाल्लाह सही है कुलाउद रब्बिन नास मलिक नास इलाही नास मिन शर्रिल खन्नास अल्लज़ी युवस्विसु फी सुदूरिन नास मिनल जिन्नति वन नास 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 नास.
After ethnographic assessment.
So for this, we had gone to a community in Delhi. It's called Nizamuddin Basti, and this is one of the centers of Sufi culture. And we used to go there regularly and talk to the community, talk to the faith healers. This was part of a project for NIHR called Transform. And when we started going there every day and talking, not only the faith healers, but even the patients who came and the people who came for help opened up to us. And we didn't want to, we didn't force them to do anything. We didn't ask them, and we just told them that we would like to connect with you. Are you happy about it? And this couple who had come for help, they agreed and they said we would like you to share story. And so we filmed it, but again we stopped. We didn't where when they're talking about something personal, though they were okay about it, but we need to know where to stop. So this we did not push, we did not chase the story, we did not keep filming, we stopped. Same way with this lady. She was again, she was not very comfortable about having her face seen, so we blurred it. And I don't have that audio for it right now. And she also spoke about so many things. So, and it just came out suddenly while we were doing other work. It was not part or of intentionally part of what we had planned. So instead of extracting information, we invite expression. Instead of representing communities, we work with them. And instead of focusing on visibility, we focus on responsibility. And when this happens, the engagement deepens. So this way of working is also reflected now in the practice of scholars such as Lisa Decomatis. She is a professor of medical anthropology and social sciences and director of Warwick Applied Health and a senior NIHR investigator. In her work, everything that is made is created with community members through genuine community engagement and involvement. It's not about taking data, extracting it, and then producing something separately. The work is made together. Importantly, communities choose the medium themselves. Like in Brazil, community members chose to make films. In Sri Lanka, young people chose to make an animation. In other places, communities chose to write a book. Another important part of this approach is working closely with artists. Visual and audio work is not only about function, it's also about care, skills, and making something that feels right. Artists bring the training and expertise to make things beautiful, not just usable. And this matters. Nothing is placed in the public domain without careful review. The work is shared back with the community members, including those whose voices are included. Feedback is invited. Changes are made. Consent is not assumed. It is ongoing. This is what co-creation looks like in practice. And this is how digital storytelling becomes a form of community engagement rather than an interactive exercise. People stop feeling like participants in someone else's project and begin to feel like partners in a shared process. Now, these approaches make something very clear. When digital storytelling is genuinely collaborative, ethics cannot be an afterthought. It is not something added at the end once something has already been made. Ethics is built into every decision. Who decides, what is shared, how it is made, and where it travels. That is why when we talk about visual storytelling and community engagement, we have to talk about ethics. So far, everything I have shared so far only works if ethics comes first. Now, let me talk about ethics and safeguarding in real time. Ethics must always come before the camera. Just because we can record something, it does not mean we should. Ethical visual work is slow, it is consent led, and it is dignity first. Consent here is not a form signed once, it is an ongoing conversation. Simple language matters. Is this okay? You can say no, we can stop anytime. And these words matter if people truly feel free to change their minds. Safeguarding also means thinking carefully about what happens after something is recorded. Where is it stored? Who has access to it? How might it be shared later? Who decides? Sometimes someone begins to share something deeply personal, and you realize that recording it would change its meaning. So you don't film. That choice builds trust. Sometimes someone asks you to see what you recorded. You show them. You check again if it's okay to keep it. In practice, this can be very simple. Many teams use a short, plain language consent script, and where appropriate, a simple video or photo release form that can be adapted for community contexts. What matters is not the paperwork, but the process, showing people what has been recorded and confirming more than once that they are comfortable with how it will be used. These small decisions protect communities and researchers, both. Good ethics not only reduces risk, it reduces misunderstandings later. It reduces harm. And over time, they make the work easier, not harder. And I will share some of these things with you in the resource handouts. And that's better than these slides, because there was so much to say and I didn't know how to put it down into slides. So I have tried, but so the slides may not move along with this. But now I think the next slide will work because I'm going to talk about snapshots from practice, about 2 snapshots from my
Ma'am,
own practice. Right.
before we continue, there are a few questions coming up in the chat. So
All right.
maybe we take those and give the participants an opportunity to ask questions. So there was one from Chris. I think when
Yeah.
you were showing the video about the couple, that could you
Right.
tell us why you decided to stop even though you had the couple's consent?
What they were talking about was very personal, So, I mean, I made the judgment on my own that I would not think, I mean, it did not add to what I wanted to show in the film. It was, what I wanted to show was that how people are going to faith healers and how they need to, the faith healers are important, but they need to go to biomedical care too, and how we were training faith healers to decide when to send someone to a doctor. So I thought that something so personal, though sometimes I feel that the community they are so far away from the modern world and from all these research that they don't realize that where their voices are going to reach. So I thought that this was not needed for my film, and so I stopped at a point where the more personal part of it would not be there. So this was a choice I made while though I had recorded it, but I did not use it in the film. That let me make that clear.
Thank you. We have another question from Sarah. She says, I keep thinking about the visible power imbalance between those who collect data and those who are the data. And in this context of inequality, how much power does a community really have to say no to consent? And she'd love to hear how you think about meaningfully balancing these power dynamics in practice beyond the formal consent process.
You'll be surprised, people do know, they realize that what they want to share and what they don't want to share. They expect a lot of return. I remember going and talking to the community members, and I used to tell them that, look, we are doing this, and the doctors are going to come from Warwick, or they are, we want to connect with you. You have to go to the community and talk to them first. You just don't go and start filming, or start. It trust builds over time. So I used to go there, talk to them, then come back, then go and talk to them, and make them trust me and explain what we were trying to do. It didn't happen quickly. It took time to gain their trust. And when they gained that trust, I realized that the most important, what they felt was, it's not that they do have a choice. It's very rare that they don't understand. So I think it is our duty to. That's what I've seen in my experience. That when we are going, we are not going too deeply into the absolutely unrepresented communities, which we need to. I feel, we are still on the borders, near the cities, near the communities which are already being helped by people. So I have worked with those kind of communities. I have not really gone into deep into the tribal areas, or where they might not feel they have a choice. But still, where all this is concerned, I realize that they are more worried about not only giving consent. They don't want to give consent because they feel that you will forget about them, that you will just take the film, use it, and then no one will come back. And one very important thing was, when we were doing this faith healing, and we were talking to the faith healers, and we were talking to the religious heads, that they were more worried about asking whether this will be used for commercial purposes, and or it will be used for research. So again, it's about trust. And see, though we have these ethical practices of having consent forms, but consent forms, personally I feel they are just a formality, just a signature. Half the time they really don't understand. They're written in English, maybe Hindi. So we need to build trust by talking to them, by making them feel that they are safe. So it's all about you as a person when you are connecting with them, and making them feel comfortable, and showing, going back to them. That is very important. When whatever you film, whatever you say, and whatever you're showing, if you show it to them, it builds a lot of trust, and they understand that you're not going to, you're going to use it. When we this like this particular couple which I talked about, they were happy about doing it. But when we talked to the faith healers and the people who were in charge, they asked me, are you sure you don't want to show this? Are you sure that it's okay? So then, when I made the film, I had a screening. I called people and I showed it to them, and it was so good. When people connected, and I always show it to them when it's in the editing stage, so that whatever feedback you get, you can add that to this. So have I answered your question, or?
Thank you. And
Yes.
Sarah, I think you had your hand up. Do you want to come in with any follow-up questions?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for answering the question, Neeru. And I agree to a great extent, though I have also worked with communities, and I also wonder that there are a lot of differences when you work with different kinds of marginalization, and how consent then varies where you're working with violence survivors. It's different when you're working with children, it's different when you're working with tribal communities. So I think with the kind of marginalization, the consent also varies. And I was just putting on chat that I think it's also important that we are intentional about our language, because mentioning that communities are far away or hard to reach can sort of hide the fact that they have been actually systematically marginalized. So I think naming that matters a lot, especially when we are like talking about power, access, and consent and data practices and everything. So just that, yeah. Thank you so much.
And I'm working very closely with the NHR on this, that, one form doesn't fit all. You just have a general consent form. It's very different for children. For children, you need parents. Sometimes they don't understand, and the small children don't understand. So there is someone who has to be there. And language, the culture, the religion, everything matters, So if one form doesn't fit all, so we are working on it. And, for what I feel that we have to start somewhere. If we keep, going into so deeply into everything, we will never reach. We keep talking, we have discussion, then some kind of a guide is made. So what I feel that by doing this simple work like this digital storytelling has been around since our ancestors, since and every time, since there is a human being, storytelling has been there. So, it creates conversations. Once the conversation starts, that's the beginning of everything. So we have to start somewhere. So for me, it is about creating conversations. It's about, making people, let me continue with this, and, I'll talk more about this, and, how we can do more about this. So now I'd like to share anything more. Should I continue? Shall we?
We have one more hand raised and a question which is somewhat related, and maybe you'll address it. So I'll just read the question out to you, and you can see if you can address it somewhere. It's somewhat related to what we were just discussing. So Dinah asks, can you share some specific strategies you rely on while obtaining consent from communities that may be hesitant to be digitally recorded? So that's one question. And Chris has her hand up. So Chris, if you want to come in quickly with your question, and ma'am, you can decide whether you want to address it now or if it addresses through your presentation.
See, one very good way of recording is audio. Everybody agrees to audio. I realized, even if they're not comfortable about being, film, shown as a film, but everybody I've not come across anybody till now who is not comfortable with audio. In fact, there is a recent, and I feel this discomfort in sharing what you feel is more in the urban areas and not in the, in the rural areas. They are more happy to connect with you, to share, because they want to be heard. The main, I think their concern is that people don't listen to them. They don't have anybody to talk to. So that is very important. So when they're talking to you, they come out and they share. And now it's up to the person and to people who are working in the projects and to the researchers to be ethical about it. But I've noticed that this reluctance to come before the camera is more in urban conditions, and it's the modern, the people, us are kind of people who are not comfortable in sharing what they feel on camera. So that is what I have noticed in so many years. And in fact, recently, I've been making films for quite a few years, and in all kinds of various situations in all parts of the country, in outside India, in Ibadan, in Bangladesh, and everywhere. And the only time where I was asked to do only audio recording was in UK. In when we were talking about Sikhs who were displaced and who emigrated, and they could not fit in, and they were all speaking in English, and they were very aware of what they were saying, and they did not want to be filmed. And so we have audios for everyone, but I have never had that problem or that issue in rural communities, where they are very willing to share. Their only concern is that don't forget us, come back, and they're happy to be heard. They are happy to be filmed. So let me talk about this a little bit, just a few lines about this. That this Transform project is about faith healers and trust building in mental health. And for this, we worked in community mental health context, where people often seek care from faith healers before approaching medical services. Now, this was a very sensitive space. There was stigma, fear, belief, and long histories of mistrust. From the beginning, we knew that asking people to explain their choices repeatedly would not build trust. So instead, we used visual documentation carefully and sparingly. We recorded small moments, a healer sitting with a family, a quiet conversation, a shared space. We did not film interventions. We did not film crisis. We filmed relationships. And one short clip, showed a healer listening. That image did more than any explanation. It allowed health professionals to see the role faith healers played, not as opposition, but as part of the community's care ecosystem. And for the community, seeing themselves represented with dignity mattered deeply. And the trust grew not because we filmed more, because we filmed less and with care. And you will see, those faith healers in this. And again, they were very happy to be filmed. And like I said, they were only worried that they should not be, the film should not be showed commercially. It should not be, used for commercial purposes. And they were happy to be used for conferences and for research purposes. So maybe you can play it and you can have a small look at this, a small clip of it. This is one of the ethics part about this disclaimer.
On 3rd January 2024, facilitators recapitulated the topics of the first day's session and tried to engage the participants even more in SMDs and its presentation by role play and reverse role play, as well as experience sharing and group activities.
আপনি তাহলে কি আপনি হচ্ছে আমি ডাক্তার হ্যাঁ ডাক্তার বা আপনি আপনার হচ্ছে আপনি হুজুরে আমি আসছি মনে করে আমার মহল্লাবাসীর একজন আমার কি রোগী দেবেন রোগ দেবেন বলেন সিজোফ্রেনিয়া দিবেন না ডিপ্রেশন দিবেন কোন একটা বলেন মানসিক চাপ না মানসিক চাপ সহজ জিনিস কিন্তু কঠিন কাজে যায় মানসিক চাপ সহজ থাকে মনে করেন আমি যে আগে যেটা বললাম সিজোফ্রেনিয়া তাহলে আপনি শুরু করেন।
So see, this is something which we had filmed, and they were very happy to have us film. And this was showcased in December at Psychiatrica, which was part of the World Psychiatric Association.
Causation and 75% first contact failure.
So this had some very, very sensitive scenes, but again, we did not sensationalize, we did not dramatize. We worked very closely with the psychiatrists and with the researchers to decide what to show and what not to show. And it sparked off a huge conversation at the conference, and people shared their own thoughts. And we came to know that these kind of practices were taking place all over the world. And people opened out about it and started talking about it and wanted to collaborate to discuss more. So this is what these films do, and this is what happens when you start the conversation. And in the same way, we did something called school engagement and behavior change. I made an animation called Hold My Hand, which was based upon inputs from a SCARF, which is the Schizophrenic Institute in Chennai. And over the years, they used to go to schools and they used to talk to children, and they collected data on what they felt and what they wanted and what were their problems and issues. And we realized that they were having problems since the age of 13, when adolescence starts and they start, they approach teenage years, and the issues start so early. And so we thought of this, and we started working with the schools around behavior, emotional well-being, and engagement. We didn't want to go too hard into this because we need to be very sensitive with children. And they're often asked to explain how do they feel, why they behave a certain way, what they need. And we realized that it was hard. The words were hard, and the children could not be, they could not say too much. So we used short consent-led visual moments to understand everyday school life. A child's reaction after an activity, a classroom moment, a quiet reflection. And These were not performances, they were fragments. And when teachers and researchers watched these clips together, something shifted. And instead of discussing behavior abstractly, they responded to what they could see. And empathy increased, blame reduced, conversations became more constructive. Visuals did not replace discussion, they grounded it. And you see, to again, keeping ethics and everything in mind, that is why we created an animation, because we did not want to show children, we didn't want to stigmatize this one, right?
Leave me alone! मुझे कोई प्यार नहीं करता, मैं बिल्कुल अकेली हूँ। मन कहता है कहीं चली जाओ और कभी वापस ना आओ। मुझे अपना हाथ दो बेटा। मैंने तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स को स्कूल बुलाया है, वो बहुत वरीड है बेटा।
Healthy coping mechanisms and build resilience and empowering students to speak up and seek support without fear or shame. You will witness heartfelt conversations and genuine moments of connection between students and educators. These interactions highlight the importance of creating an environment where every child feels safe and valued.
To make comments in 3 different areas. One is the quality of the film. If you like the film, it's a message to you. Those comments I will ask Ms. Neeru Khera to address. And then the question about the message, whether it makes you feel different about conflict, those questions Dr. Priyanka and I will address. And finally, आपने क्या फर्क आया मूवी में? कुछ फर्क आया कि आपको ज़्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन मिली या कुछ समझ आई? तो आप प्लीज खुले दिल से honestly अपने व्यूज को दीजिए। कौन शुरू करेगा?
When we made this film, we went back to the audiences, and we showed it to a varied number of schools, public schools, small schools, and we were amazed at the kind of response. It was much beyond our expectations, and everybody, all the children came out and they talked. I could not show so much of it, and even the school people were surprised, that everything came out, and they connected with us, and they told us that what they so many what of they felt was there, and how we should make more of these things, and how we should maybe make something for their parents so that they also understand. So it was such a wonderful thing, and excuse me, and we realized that this helps all over. It's not that I made this with research from schools in Chennai, and you will be surprised that this film got the Audience Oscar Award in Kigali in Rwanda. And maybe Maruf, you can show the other video which is there, and see what someone talked about it and spoke about it, and just listen to this.
Hi Neeru, I got a message for you.
Yeah, hi Neeru. Oh my goodness, that was such a touching testimonial. You deserve a million Oscars, and indeed that message resonates with very many young girls. I could resonate with it from when I was younger, and it was such a powerful message. So thank you, and keep the good work.
And thank you Neeru. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So see, I filmed this in a small space in small schools in Chennai, and a healthcare, a professor or a healthcare worker or community, even someone in Rwanda, connected with it. So what can be better? So very often these things, if I had written just in a paper, it would not have reached everywhere. It wouldn't have give that feeling of connection. So that is why this kind of storytelling and digital work is very, very important. And to continue, this isn't extra work. So there's some, I want to address a very practical concern. Many research teams worry that this will add more work. But when it's done simply, it is not hard work. It does not sit outside your existing CEI activities. It sits inside them. It enriches what you're already doing. the field visits, the meetings, the community discussions, the reflections, and the reporting. One photograph taken during a routine visit can later support reflection, training, and communication. A short audio note can preserve insight that might otherwise be lost. And these small acts often save time later. They help teams remember exactly what happened. They help teams explain work clearly, and they help communities present keep keep them in the decision making process. Now, let me quickly finish. What I have to say, that recording engagement visually adds value in very concrete ways. It creates richer records of engagement. It supports reflection and learning. For institutions, it makes impact easier to communicate. Visual records help research travel beyond academic spaces. They reach policymakers, practitioners, and communities themselves. They make it hard for community voices to disappear between data collection and reporting. And most importantly, they remind teams why the work matters long after a project ends. Another very important reason why visual work matters, especially for those of you working with the research systems, they often have a different kind of impact on audiences such as policymakers, funders, and conference audiences. These are audiences who might never visit the communities you work with. They may never sit in a household, a classroom, or a clinic. So, for them, research often arrives as summaries, statistics, and reports. Visuals help bridge that distance. And this bond matters. When decision makers can see and hear people, not just read about them, the empathy increases. Abstract issues begin to feel human. Complexity becomes relatable. And this doesn't replace evidence, it supports it. And the visuals have an ability to travel. Films, photographs, audios can reach beyond a single meeting or report. They can be shared across platforms, conferences, institutions. They can reach people who might never open an academic paper. Conversation across disciplines, across sectors, between research, policy, practices. And so these conversations are very essential. They invite questions, they create space for reflection, and they ensure that people are not forgotten. Now, why keep, this joy on doing this work is also sustainability. When visual practices are introduced carefully, teams keep using them and they reconnect people. They create pride. They make community engagement feel relational rather than transactional. It's not creativity for creativity's sake. It's about keeping engagement human. Creativity matters for a deeper reason because it enables emotional expression. When people are able to express emotions safely without having to explain or justify, something important happens. It supports well being. When well being is supported, individuals feel grounded and more connected. And when they feel connected, the communities become stronger. And stronger communities form ecosystems of trust, care, and shared understanding. And these ecosystems and not isolated interventions eventually enable systemic change. And this is why creativity is not an add-on to CEI work, it's part of the pathway. It's not about aesthetics, it's not about just work. It's about access, feeling, dignity, and access to form of knowledge that do not fit neatly into forms or reports. Now, all this is supported by a growing body of research, including systematic reviews and applied studies. And digital storytelling is an established method in health research for illuminating complex narratives. And recent research finds that co-created digital stories can be health promoting, not only for the storytellers, but enabling reflection and emotional engagement. And all this is, cited from research papers, that practical consent and release templates for photos and videos are widely available and can be adapted for community contests using simple, ongoing consent language protects participants and researchers. And studies across education and health contexts consistently show digital stories increase empathy and engagement, helping research findings reach wider non-academic audiences. It travels through images, sound, and stories. It does not reduce scientific rigor. So, in this sense, visual and storytelling are no longer additions to engagement. They are becoming part of how engagement works across disciplines. Now, there's just one thing I want to encourage you to take from today. You don't need to start big. You start with one project, one moment, one consented image, one reflection. You build slowly, let practice guide you. Digital storytelling works best when it grows gently. And I just want to leave with one question. In your work, what deserves to be seen and not explained? Digital storytelling is not about visibility, it is about responsibility. When care leads, trust follows. And when trust is present, pictures begin to speak. Responsibility for how stories are held, responsibility for where they travel, and responsibility for who they ultimately serve. When visuals are used with care, something important happens. Communities begin to trust that their lives will not be reduced to footnotes, that their realities will not be flattened into statistics, that their voices will not disappear once the project ends. This is where digital storytelling truly matters, not because it is creative, not because it changes what and who is remembered. When care leads, trust follows. And when trust is present, pictures do more than speak, they stay. Visuals help research reach non academic audiences. Policymakers and funders respond differently when they can see and hear people that data alone can't convey. They travel. And they help ensure that the people at the heart of our work remain visible, human, and long after the data has been analyzed. Thank you, and I'm happy to.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you. There are some really practical questions that are coming in from our audience. And your experience on the ground can help us with those. So Sudha asks, how do you deal with biased responses or incomplete information that people may give because they are being recorded?
Like I said, see, it is a trust building exercise. You cannot just go one day and say, look, I have come to record you, because that is when all this happens. When you start meeting people and talking to them and going there repeatedly and having conversations, you learn to sift and see where the things might not be what they are, but they might be controlled. So I know that is, I think, something which is part of it, and which we need to sift out and sort out. And it's partly judgmental from the person who's doing it, partly creating more trust, and it's a combination, and it just happens with while you're doing it. I cannot give any fixed points for it, that you do this, you do that, and this will happen. It doesn't, because this is not talking. It's about feeling. It's about what people are feeling, what's happening. So this is part of it which you need to work on and decide for yourself.
Thank you. And somewhat related to this is, in your experience, what is the time frame that you typically work with to engage with communities before you start filming, or through the entire process? So again, I'm sure the answer will differ, but Chris had this question, wanted to know.
Again, it's again about opening up. Some people open up fast, some people don't. So it's about gaining trust. Some people are, they have had bad experiences, so it takes longer time for them to open up to you, and they will tell you that we did this and this happened and this was not good, and then you need to reassure them. Sometimes they are absolutely raw and no one has worked with them, and they are more open to it. And children and women I have seen are more open to this kind of talk, and they are more receptive everywhere. And and if you work in their surroundings, in be comfortable with their culture, with their religion, and work in that, not in your language, in your culture. You have someone from the community who will maybe connect you both and be a bridge between. So that helps a lot. I have realized that they try to explain. So working with them in what their comfort zone is very important, and that helps.
Thank you. We have another question on any experience or guidance regarding working with groups, for example, political policy influencer, etc., when the power dynamic is unsafe and could have repercussions for communities being advocated with. I mean, Delt, if you want to come in to yeah, but as I understand it, it's saying, where the power dynamics are a bit unsafe. Uh, yeah, the communities need to talk in front of someone who they don't feel safe around. How do you sort of work with those situations?
See, this is still a very new field. It's not some. This is something which has been started. So rules are being made. Things are still being decided. And at the moment, it's only what depends on the person doing the filming, upon the people the project is connected with. So it is very important for the person like me, when I am a part of a project, to work very closely with the researchers, with the field workers, and with the project researchers and the project leads and the project heads. So I need to be very careful about what I'm trying to say, that I don't go here and there, and I don't a small thing. Let me explain an example. We were doing a film on mental health of Kashmiri Pandits who have been displaced, and so this is a very sensitive political subject, but we've seen that the depression is going on in generations in people, Kashmiri Pandits especially. So we talked to different people, and we went to the camps, we talked to them, and then we created a fiction based on those two stories. So and then when we made that fiction, we were very, 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 very sure to make sure that no political angle came into it at all. So it is difficult. You have to work extra hard for that, but it is possible, and it can be done, and to be shown to policymakers in a gentle way, and gently guide them towards this and show the advantages. So again, this is all about ethics and working closely with everybody and listening, and then deciding what works the best. In
Thank
fact,
you.
UNICEF and a lot of WHO and all are doing a lot of filmmaking where they make small films and then they show it at charity functions and to people, and for getting funding and donation. So again, you have to be very careful. Don't do something which is use ethical filmmaking. Don't show something which is very distressing. Just to create get more funding and everything. So again, like I said, their framework is being formed, but again, it is very difficult to form a framework for making a film, because creativity goes ahead. So a balance between creativity and reality, and a reality check, is very important.
I say thank you, ma'am, for sharing really powerful examples and sharing about your, experiences. And I think most importantly, the discussion. I mean, it's always good to run out of time when there are more questions. So we will come back to you with some more questions. And thank you all of you who have joined today and asked all the thoughtful questions. This series is really about learning together, and today's session has reminded us that pictures don't just speak; they connect, listen, and honor the communities that we work with. We look forward to welcoming you to the next Voices of Practice session. Until then, thank you once again, and bye.